Thomas, a young man adrift in the world's indifferent currents, had sought only an affordable refuge. He found it, or so he believed, in Stonehaven Estate, a sprawling, derelict manor nestled on the forgotten outskirts of Ashwood Village. The manor loomed, a skeletal hand against the bruised twilight sky, its windows like vacant, despairing eyes. The landlord, a gaunt, oddly eager man named Thorne, had been unsettlingly swift with the keys, his gaze lingering with an almost predatory expectancy. Thomas dismissed it as the quirks of rural living, the desperation of a man unloading a white elephant. He had no way of knowing he was merely stepping into a waiting snare. The oppressive silence of Stonehaven pressed in on him the moment he crossed the threshold. Thus motes danced in the sparse light filtering through grimy panes, like lost souls swirling in a forgotten dance. The air was heady, tasting of decay and ancient secrets. Days bled into a disquieting routine. He explored the vast, echoing rooms, each one colder than the last, until his curiosity led him to the library. Behind a grand, but crumbling, fireplace, he ran his hand along the aged stone. A loose brick, hidden by centuries of neglect, yielded with a soft rasp. His fingers fumbled within the cold, grimy recess, brushing against something hard, metallic, and unnervingly cold. He pulled out a peculiar, ornate revolver, its barrel gleaming dully despite the dust of ages. It felt impossibly heavy in his hand, as if burdened by unseen gravitas. Alongside it, a single, faded photograph of a woman with sorrowful, wide-set eyes and hair like spun moonlight. Her beauty was ethereal, haunting. Beneath them, a cryptic note, handwritten on brittle parchment, 3 shots. One reveals the path. One reveals the secret. The last reveals your purpose. A shiver, not of cold, but of dread, traced its way down Thomas's spine. The words pulsed with an insidious promise, an unspoken threat. He felt an inexplicable compulsion, a cold hand guiding his own. The revolver was impossibly alluring. He ventured into the overgrown gardens, the revolver weighty in his grip. The first shot tore through the unnatural stillness, a deafening crack that echoed like a scream across the desolate grounds. The manor itself seemed to flinch. Returning inside, the air was perceptibly colder, heavy with a new, subtle hum. He noticed a faint, glistening trail, almost imperceptible unless sought, shimmering faintly on the polished floorboards, leading towards a part of the house he had believed was merely a solid wall, now revealing the faint outline of a concealed doorway behind a tattered tapestry. A path was revealed. A cold dread settled upon him, but the morbid curiosity, or perhaps the house's silent, unyielding will, propelled him forward. He pulled aside the heavy tapestry, revealing the narrow, dust-choked corridor that led to a small, hidden chamber. It was a study, frozen in time, oppressive with the scent of aged paper and despair. On a heavy, claw-footed desk sat a single, locked wooden box. His hand trembled as he raised the revolver again. The second shot ripped through the confined space, a concussive force that rattled the very foundations of the house. A low, guttural groan seemed to emanate from the manor's ancient timbers, a sound of agony or perhaps satisfaction. The wooden box on the desk clicked to open, its lid slowly creaking. Inside lay a leather-bound journal, its pages thick with frantic, looping script. It was the chronicle of one Silas Croft, the manor's previous occupant. Thomas devoured the entries, his heart pounding like a trapped bird. Silas' words painted a chilling descent into madness. His discovery of the house's game, his mounting terror of an unseen entity referred to only as her, and the chilling, unspoken horror of the third shot. The journal spoke of previous players, of a cycle, of souls devoured. The woman in the photograph, Ola Larava, was mentioned with a chilling reverence, a spectral presence that lured and consumed. Silas' last entries were a desperate, barely coherent scrawl, a frantic warning of the entity's approach, its hunger for those who reach the final stage. The purpose was not salvation, but absorption. The third shot, he realized with a sickening lurch, was not a means of escape for Silas, but a sacrifice, a perpetuation of the cycle. His breath hitched in his throat. The house, once merely old, now felt alive, a sentient predator. Whispers, faint as a moth's wings brushing against his ear, seemed to slither through the silence, coiling around him, drawing him towards the final, inevitable act. He felt a cold, spectral touch on his hand, a chilling presence breathing down his neck. The journal ended abruptly, a final, desperate plea. She's here. The third shot is for me, for the cycle. Don't look back. He clutched the revolver at the final, gleaming bullet a mocking eye. He could hear Lara's voice, a mournful siren's song, calling his name from the shadows. She was there, everywhere and nowhere. He knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that the third shot was not for himself, not to end the game, but to complete his transformation. As he raised the heavy weapon, the spectral form of Alara, translucent and skeletal, materialized before him, her eyes full of pits of despair, her mouth a silent, agonizing scream. She beckoned, her spectral hand reaching out, drawing his will towards the fatal discharge. He fired the third shot, not at the spectral figure, but into the space where she had solidified, a desperate, defiant act of terror. A blinding flash of eldritch light erupted, a soul-rending shriek tore through the air, vibrating through his very bones. The room twisted, reality itself seeming to buckle and tear. Thomas collapsed, his senses reeling, his mind a shattered mosaic of fear and confusion. When he finally stirred, the blinding light had vanished. The revolver was gone. The journal was gone. He stumbled through the manor, seeking an exit, but every door was locked, every window sealed. He found himself inexplicably drawn back to the fireplace, to the hidden compartment. His hands, acting on their own, reached into the cold recess. There a fresh, ornate revolver, and a photograph his own. He stared at the faded image, but the eyes looking back were no longer his own, but hollow, ancient, filled with a despair that mirrored Alara's. He saw a faint, glistening trail leading from the fireplace towards the hidden study, the path now clear, waiting. He looked around the silent, waiting house. He was no longer Thomas. He was the next Silas, the next lure, trapped, destined to await the next unwitting soul. The whispers began again, not for him, but to him, calling out to the vast, empty world beyond the manor walls, beckoning a new player to Stonehaven Estate, to the game that never ended, to the purpose that consumed all. He was now the house's voice, the final chilling shot in the endless cycle.